I'm going to sort of rattle on for about 20 minutes, and then Hannah and I are going to talk, and then hopefully you guys are going to join us talking. So I got to start by telling you that I am breaking a hard and fast private writer's rule of mine, which is never, ever talk in public about a book in progress, which is exactly what I'm going to do tonight. Especially don't do this when the topic of the book in progress could be considered grossly inappropriate at this particular moment of time. That's called a trigger warning. And above all, don't do it when you're a techno idiot, which I quite clearly am, because I had to have it explained to me over the phone how to close off the links at the top, which is why it wasn't working before. Mea culpa. It's all my fault. In any case, so as I say, some might find this kind of inappropriate, and others may find it, as it were, a shot in the arm, definitely, as it were, because the book is about getting and being old, which is indeed the shortest four-letter word, or the longest three-letter word, because the way I like to say it is, I mean, I really like to sort of tease it out. I go, old, with lots of O's and lots of L's, and then that little thud of the D at the end. It appears to be the most terrifying word in the English language. So I really want to get kind of in your face with it. Not least because it's definitely in my face. I mean, you can see. Well, you probably can if it was in focus, which is not. I'm out to reclaim the word old. I'm out to reclaim being old, but not just reclaim it. I'm out to embrace it. I'm out to dance with it. At risk of being totally tasteless because of the reference, I want to make old great again. So that's where I'm at. Because being old, and I am now definitely officially old. I'm going to turn 75 this year. And remember that Beatles song, When I'm 64? Well, I always heard that as When I'm 84. Always. I mean, when it first came out in 1967, I heard it as When I'm 84. So now I'm exactly halfway between 64 and 84. It seemed a good time to think about being old. I'm very soon 75. And it's just not at all what I expected. Did I expect gloom and doom? I don't know. I actually don't think I ever thought I'd live this long with the kind of life I've lived. But it's full of surprises and contradictions and unexpected freedoms. And in fact, I have a T-shirt that says it very well, which I will now show you. I would wear it, except it's too cold. So you want to see my T-shirt? I'll show you my T-shirt. Ta-da! I got it online. Old is the new black. Unfortunately, I can't use that as a title because obviously someone already thought of it. So here's the question. How old do you actually have to be old? And the answer is, it's all over the place. I mean, the cutoff point, which is probably an unfortunate term to use right now, but the cutoff point differs depending on who you're reading, which academic, which medical expert, which sociological expert, which anthropological experts, and so on. Everybody's got different categories of oldness. There's young old, and there's just plain old, and there's old, and then there's kind of ancient. I don't know. But the point is, they are all completely arbitrary. Completely arbitrary. As, by the way, is 65, the age of Social Security, which was established almost a century ago, I think in 1935, 36, when lifetimes were much, much shorter. We're living longer now. And it's just so outdated. And that in itself was kind of arbitrary. So there is no time when you become old. You just look in the mirror one day and you realize, that's it. Hey, I'm old. And what am I going to do with this, right? So I, as is my custom, over-research like crazy. So I spent the last year doing a deep dive into the academic literature on what's called aging studies. This is a whole field of academia, aging studies. And very early on, I realized that the reigning paradigm in aging studies for the past 30 or 40 years has been something called, and here I quote, Successful Aging. Successful Aging was the title of a study done under the auspices of the MacArthur Foundation, and therefore very, very, very respectable. And it was done with all the best intentions. It was done in order to try and, sort of like tackle this fear of aging, this terror of the word old and so on. But it turned out to be a very unfortunate term because especially since it took successful aging, which it defined in a way that applies to hardly any of us, and it opposed it to something called, and again, I quote from the study, usual aging, which means that most people aren't aging successfully at all. We're doing a lousy job at it. We stink at aging, no matter how old we are. I mean, the whole thing is absurd because, I would imagine that successful aging starts the day you're born and you kind of get older as you grow up. But no, successful aging seems to apply only to those strange people who go skydiving at age 90, or that woman, there's an ad for something or other. She's an older model and she's really slinky in stiletto heels walking along a Soho street in New York late at night and so on, with perfect hair and nothing like the rest of us. So this whole idea of successful aging, which, as I say, has been the reigning paradigm in aging studies for the past 30, 40 years, sets nearly every single one of us up for total failure. Aging becomes a matter of pass-fail. Either you pass and you succeed at it, or you fail and, well, surely that would mean that you're dead. But no. It's it's an attempt to deal with the terror of the word aging, which is also there, by the way, in the phrase anti-aging. All those anti-aging creams and lotions and potions and serums and injections and so on and so on. Well, anything that you're anti must be bad, right? Aging becomes the enemy. It becomes something to be defeated successfully, of course, right? You're not allowed to get old. Which is kind of absurd because we do get old and we are old. I'm old by any definition at 75, nearly 75. I'm old. It feels kind of good, but I'll get to that in a minute. Take the idea of loss. I mean, the whole idea of aging as a matter of loss. And then you ask, okay, well, what's being lost? And most people will say, well, the answer is obvious. It's the loss of youth. And you think, well, my first reaction is youth really such a terrible thing to lose? And then, I think of, one wonderful book on being old, which is not at all academic, and which I came across fairly recently, and which might be the best book of all on being old that I've come across, is by Twyla Tharp, the dancer. Keep it moving, right? Here's a quote from it. She says, where is it? We don't lose youth. Youth stays put. We move on. She's got it. And she's 78, by the way. In fact, the truth is that being old is not loss at all. It's anything but loss. It's the opposite of loss. It is accumulation. There is, in my 70s, there's more of me. Because I'm who I was in my 20s, I'm who I was in my 30s, and my 40s, and my 50s, and so on. They're all part of me. So here I am at 75. There is a lot more of me than there ever was before, right? I'm just full of existence. But also, due to the process of cultural and social osmosis, right, I'm also full of all the stereotypes about aging. I remember once sitting in an audience and sort of somebody was talking about how we need to get more young people in this audience. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, yeah, you're right. Just look at all these gray-haired, white-haired people here. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. Oops. And I thought it with that kind of dismissiveness, which I think most old people are kind of used to from younger people. But, we do it too. Old people do it too. We've internalized this aging thing, right? Because we can be just as ageist and just as dismissive as younger people about old people. So, I mean, I can hardly judge someone who's young for dismissing me on the basis of how I look as just, oh, another old woman, right? Oh, a little old lady. Okay, I don't think anyone's called me a little old lady yet, but it'll come. But I can hardly judge them for that because I have caught myself doing the same thing. And what does that say about how I think of myself? When old people do it also, when they turn out to be just as ageist as young people, as younger people, what on earth have we done to ourselves? What on earth are we internalizing? In fact, there are experiments that show that if you take someone and you show them a whole series of words associated in the stereotyped way with being old, being frail, being in pain, being stooped, and so on, they will walk out of the room looking stooped and frail. It's that strong. It just gets into your head. So yeah, we old people have had all these decades in which to absorb all this crap about being old. So we're not really paying attention to how we do feel. I mean, take the phrase, and you hear this a lot, but I don't feel old. If you ask most old people how old they feel, the average, and this has been researched, the average that they will say is 15 to 20 years younger than their chronological age. So I could say I feel like 60. What am I saying? I am 75. This is the way I feel. Maybe this is what 75 feels like for me. But it feels different for everybody. Being 20 feels like different for everybody. Being 30 feels different for everybody, and so on. What's happened here is that we've become prisoners of PowerPoint. I call it the PowerPoint syndrome, right? We're just trying to categorize us all, to squeeze us into this pigeonhole or that pigeonhole, and to totally deny any individuality, any differences in the way we experience our lives, whether we're in our 20s or in our 70s or our 80s or our 90s, right? So I'm working off notes here, so it's part of the risk of talking about a book in progress. Then, of course, okay, if you're older, you'll know this. There's various SOPs, to your age. People think they're being nice because you're old. So they will talk to you in elder speak. If there is a word for it, it's an academic word, elder speak. How are you doing today, dear? Can I help you, sweetie? Like we're 5 years old. I mean, 5-year-olds hate to talk. 70-year-olds hate it all. 5-year-olds. And you're some perfect strangers. Or you get words said in admiration about older people. Oh, she's really fitting. He's so spry. These are words, old-fashioned words, by the way. Or you'll get something like this. I remember somebody talking about my mother who died when she was 90 and said, boy, she's sharp as a tack. And I thought, really? That's the best you can come up with? I'm sharp as a scalpel, maybe, sharp as a laser. A carpet tack? Isn't it kind of sweeping things under the rug? Is it? The language, it keeps on going. There's the word still. Oh, yeah, he's still going, right? He's still got it, right? Still going, like that Energizer bunny busy banging its tin drum. The condescension here is so clear once you're sort of tuned into it. Or then there's the past tense. I can't tell you the number of times I've been told. And again, and it's admiringly, and it's meant well. Wow, you've had such an interesting life. And I look at that past tense and I think, wait a minute, did I die and not realize it? What is this with the past tense? I have had such an interesting life. I'm having one. Thank you. It's actually fascinating being old. Or then you get words like septuagenarian. or octogenarian, or nonagenarian, and so on. Boy, those words really make you feel old, which is how come there was a headline on the front page of the New York Times about, a couple of months ago saying that there were 3 septuagenarians running for the Democratic nomination for the presidency. And I think, yeah, I know that the person who wrote that headline was really young. Because nobody ever talks about somebody in their 30s as a tetragenarian, would it be that? Trigenarian, whatever it is, or someone in their 40s as a quadragenarian. It's only used to make you feel really, really old. And I'm not going to get to that whole phrase about 80 years young and that kind of that Hallmark card stuff. No. But here's perhaps, I'm worried about going on too long. Here's perhaps the thing that really gets to me. It's the biggest sop of all. And that's the saying, older but wiser. And you note the but, right? And what this really says is, there, it's all right. We know you're old, but at least you're wiser. At least you've got that. You've got something, right? But seriously, I mean, are you wiser? I don't know. There's a whole pile. Actually, it's very funny reading psychologists trying to figure out what wisdom is. I'm not going to quote wonderful gobbledygook, but it's very amusing, and it's all grist for my mill as a writer. But there's actually out there wisdom questionnaires, self-assessed. You fill them out yourself. Guess what? Everybody comes out wise. Because it's so obvious, right? Except for me, by the way, I only came out moderately wise, which seems to be about right. Moderate. Let's just leave out the wise. And besides, I do have a rather distressingly strong argument against this whole idea that wisdom comes with age. And that is to point to voting patterns. Not only in the United States, also in Europe and just about worldwide. In the United States, the older you are, the more likely you are. This is the one thing that makes me ashamed to be old. The older you are, the more likely you are to vote Republican, directly against your own interests. I mean, it's like all these old people down in Florida or wherever, are they sending back their Social Security checks? No. Are they turning down Medicare? No. Don't they have kids and grandkids? Of course they do. Do they care about their kids and grandkids? Apparently not, if they're voting Republican. I mean, it is just mind-boggling. So there's my main argument against, the whole thing of wisdom and age. And yet, I'll wind up fairly soon, and then we'll get to talk with Hanna and get her take on all this. But something does change, and it changes in a way I really like. I don't have much patience for this whole idea of aging gracefully. I mean, I'd much rather age disgracefully, wonderfully disgracefully. And I have a poem to read about that if we have time, but later. Not by me, by a Scottish poet. But, this whole thing of acting your age, God, I hated that when I was a kid, and I hate it now. I have no intention of acting my age, whatever that may be. I have no intention of behaving according to your stereotype of how I should behave based entirely on how I look. None. And I think most people my age don't either, or older. But, some of you are probably acquainted with the reaction when you get your first letter from AARP, which happens somewhere around your 48th or 49th birthday. They don't even wait till you're 50. And you think, I mean, I remember I was insulted. Insult! How dare they? They think I'm old? Something has changed. The last time I flew, I was in the airport and I was going through the magnetic thing where, to check that you're not carrying guns and so on. And there was a young woman who was part of the TSA, and she looked at me and she said, "Excuse me, ma'am," she says, "do you have a pacemaker?" And I know that just 10 years ago, I would have been so insulted. I would have snarled or did something or snapped at her. That's not what happened. I was really surprised at myself. I smiled at her and I, no, I don't. But thank you for asking. And I meant it. I wasn't being sarcastic. I meant it. Um, I had no idea that I was capable of being gracious. It only occurred to me afterwards. I didn't even have to think about it. Something changes. Um, could it be that I'm getting nicer as I get older? I mean, it doesn't seem likely. I think maybe I'm becoming more comfortable with myself, with who I am. I mean, just take my face. It's worn, it's weathered, as you can maybe see, maybe not because it's nighttime. The lighting's not too good. But I like it this way. I like it this way, the same way you like, let's say, an old cashmere sweater that's kind of falling to pieces, but it's your favorite sweater, and you just keep on wearing it, even though it's falling to pieces, and it's kind of in much better days, but you love it. Or like my leather sofa, which I've had for decades, right? And it's all scratched. It's totally scratched up from the cat that used to live here, right? And it's got, big rips in it from kids bouncing on it and so on, and babies peeing on it, God knows what, drooling on it. I love it that way. I'd much rather a well-worn sofa than a brand new one. Also, you're afraid to put your feet up on and so on. Or better still, take the idea of an olive tree. In fact, an olive tree, all gnarled, lives for hundreds of years, sometimes even thousands of years. And the trunk is all gnarled and worn and weathered, right? But what does an olive tree give you? It gives you food and it gives you, which are two things that young trees cannot give you. Think of, I call them architect trees. Those trees that architects draw in, and there's one thing, and there's a sort of spindly branches come off and hardly any leaves and so on. No, they'll never give any shade, right? They won't even last in the street. They'll never give shade. But an olive tree, that's something else. So I found, to my astonishment, not only that I'm more comfortable with myself, but that with every day that passes, I can't be. I'm happier. I feel happier. And I'm not the only one. There is research to show that there is something called a U curve. And what happens is you're pretty happy when you're young, really young, when you're a kid, believe it or not. And then your happiness, well, I'm not quite sure we're measuring happiness here, maybe contentment, maybe something else, goes down. And it says it's first somewhere in middle age, about your 40s. And then very, very slowly, it starts to go up again until you get to your 70s. And guess what? It's as high as it was when you were a kid. I'm not making this up. There's research, a lot of research, and it holds universally, worldwide. So I'm not sure they call it the happiness curve. I'm not sure we're talking happiness in the sense of rah, rah, yeah, let's dance. So that's great too. We should all dance more. Do I mean contentment? Maybe, but I think I mean more than that. More accepting. A greater sense of gratitude. A greater willingness to be honest, to be outspoken, to be straightforward, not to play games. Or something more than all this. I don't know, but I'd love to hear what you have to say about it, Hannah. And one more thing to anyone else who's listening in after our rather disastrous beginning. I do have a problem, and that's that I don't have a title. I can't use Old is the New Black because it's on the t-shirts I wear, right? I kind of like In Your Face, but that sounds like it's only about Brooks, and that's totally irrelevant to me in any case. A friend suggested making old great again, but there's that Trumpian. So if anyone has any great idea, type a kind of really your face title, I would love to hear them in your class or in Hannah, over to you.
I
I can't hear you.
One thing I'm going to there we go. Okay. One thing I would suggest, Lesley, is aging disgracefully. I think that's pretty good.
I think it's been
Oh,
used.
now I've lost her. Oh. Oh no, there we go. Okay, I have you still. Okay. I do want to say, you're talking about your sort of patience with this TSA agent and the contentment, and I really feel like what you're describing is in fact grace. So just something to consider. I think you're actually aging quite gracefully.
I don't know. It's never been my thing. I grace, somebody who just floats like a bubble through life. Just I've always been a bit klutzy, so. Oh,
Maybe
can't
you're
hear
just
you.
living gracefully. Yeah, but like grace, and like you're a theologist, grace in the sense of giving space to people.
Well, I call that being a mensch. I call that being a human being. I call it just being a decent person.
Yeah, but man, us Goyim, we don't have a good word for it. We don't have a word like mensch.
I love it.
So you mentioned something so interesting, just that I have to note, is that you talked about like elder speak. And literally today, I was walking like after my constitutional, and I with partner, and we heard this woman talking to nobody. We thought like we didn't know who she was talking to because they were kind of behind us. And the thing I said to my partner was, "Oh my God, I hope she's talking to a dog," because of the way she was. Because she was like, "Oh, hey." And I was like, "I hope it's a dog." And then I hear what is unmistakably a senior voice be like, "Hello." And I was like, she was talking to that human person like a child. And I just was so struck because, like you said, I didn't like to be spoken to like a child when I was a child. I hated it. I cannot imagine. I have to think that there's something sort of like karmic or evolutionary to the fact that we develop like lower thresholds for other people's bullshit at the same time that we get older, because I feel like you have to. Because I would throw a garden rake at someone who talked to me like that.
Well, this is what I want to do. I wish that woman would do what the 2-year-old in my life does right now. Sometimes she dresses up and so on, and I say, "Well, are you?" She says, "No," and I say, "Are you that?" And she says, "No," and then she says, "I'm me." And I just look at that and I think, "Oh God, may she hold on to this for all of her life." I'm me.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
That woman today just get the encouragement to say, "Cut it out, I'm me," right?
Yeah, right? Like, I own the home across the street from yours. Like, take off a clog and throw it. Oh my gosh. I willed that for her in that moment, but I just was like, dang, people they really do that. I can't imagine relating to any, I don't speak to children like that.
Yeah.
But so I was taking many notes. I also know that I'm supposed to be taking them from the audience, and at the risk of breaking everything, I can't actually see the chat right now. I'm so sorry. I had it, you guys, and I'm so worried about doing something incorrectly. Okay, well, we'll just see. Okay.
You can't have done any more than that. So.
It's fine. Yeah. I have questions. That's why they pay me the very mediocre bucks. But also actually, like, you maybe you have them, yeah. So okay, just to get one thing out of the way. I am a 32-year-old individual. I was born in 1987. I am not old. However, I am just old enough with a youthful face that I have started I have stopped getting carded like regularly to buy beer. And I remember going, I come youthful look stock. I remember going with my mother when I was a teenager and she was buying cigarettes. And the lady was like, oh, like I need some ID to my mom that maybe my mom looked under 25 or whatever it was for buying cigarettes. And then my mom just like gestured at me and was just like, hello, this is a child. I made this. It's 15. And the lady at the Dairy Mart or wherever we were was like, this is gonna be great for you because someday you're gonna be so happy to be carded. And I remember thinking that was really not true then. And I want to say now in my 30s, it's still not true because it's just annoying to get my wallet out when I'm like to get something else out when I'm trying to make a purchase.
Yeah, if you go
But
to
I'm curious.
Uncle Ike's will card you no matter what age you are.
Well, that's what they're supposed to do that. Which is again, you're just ready. You have to bring your passport practically for that. But I think we get a lot of really shitty advice about aging because of, like you said, that internalized feeling, right? That youth is something that's like lost, like just gone to the winds.
The darling
so
bud.
Instead, I guess. I guess what I would ask is, what do you feel like is your advice for someone who's like my age about getting older? Like, love to hear better advice than like, oh, you're gonna love to be carded.
It is just, it's an adventure. It's a discovery. It's a whole different realm of being, and it's fascinating. I mean, these negative reactions of stupid people are part of what's fascinating about it. But also what's fascinating is, it's true, there are limitations, right? You're not as physically, I mean, I can't walk as far, my knees are gone, I can't run anymore, so I do other things. I do Pilates mat, I do that and so on. But it's but I used to travel. I used to, when I did deep research, I would just I would all over the world. My body won't like it anymore. Old bodies do not like airplanes, right? I mean, I don't think young bodies like airplanes anyway.
Nobody does, I don't think, but yeah. It's worse, I think.
Putting yourself in a badly pressurized aluminum tube for hours on end, squished in with God knows how many other people, it's kind of crazy, right? But what I find is that okay, so if I'm not exploring physically anymore, if I'm not going for long in the desert anymore like I used to for days on end and so on, I'm going for long hikes in my mind. Right? There's different kinds of exploration. There's intellectual exploration, which is what I've been doing far more in the past few years. There's the use of imagination and empathy and so on. And you can just explore. There is no end to exploration. I think somebody has said that before me. And it's exciting. It's exciting finding out all these other ways that you can be interested and keep asking and keep looking and keep finding new things and discovering new things, or even simply working out. I've been doing Pilates mat now for how long? 25 years. And I'm still learning new things. I'm just still discovering muscles I didn't think I had.
Your core must be incredible.
It's pretty strong, but I'm also discovering intellectual muscles I didn't know I had, and I want to keep on doing this, right, until I die. I don't want to stop. I don't want to retire. It's a terrible word, retire, because it's tired. It's based on tire, so you retire. And by the way, that's in a lot of language. There's the word frail is used for a lot of quote unquote elderly people. Another word I hate, elderly, even though there's a wonderful book called Elderhood by a geriatrician called Louise Aronson, who's it's actually an excellent book despite the title. But I mean, frail, you just take away the R and you've got fail, and you're back to the successful aging, failed aging thing again, right? So we get these subtle messages all the time, and we're responding to them. And I'm saying, you gotta stop, guys. We just gotta be us, be me, like that 2-year-old, whatever age you are.
I love that. And I love that. I think, like you said, like you were talking about, like retirement. I can't help but feel like, though, you talked about like the happiness curve, that it's like when you're a child and you don't have to go to work, and then when you're older and you maybe don't have to go to work, like, but not just the not working part, but really the ability to imagine, like you said, that's what you're like, really leaning into is imagination and learning. It's like, yeah, these are the two times in your life when you're encouraged to just like read a book, sit around, probably have imaginary friends. I don't know if seniors are encouraged to have imaginary friends, but I think so.
Yeah, but I also realize I am talking, and I do realize this, I'm talking from a position of privilege, of great privilege. Sure. As a writer, right, you never retire as a writer. You just keep on thinking, you keep on writing, and you keep on exploring, right, which is, for me, what writing is exploration. But also, I'm white, I'm well-educated, so on, born in England, living in the United States, so I'm entirely first world and so on. Had a great education. Yeah, I'm really privileged. And for people, I never had to work, never had to labor physically for a living. I've done stints of physical labor, and I know just those short stints, how incredibly wearing on the body it is. And it's why, when I turned 65, the first thing I did was get a sticker for my car. This was long before Bernie was onto it, saying Medicare for all. Medicare for all, guys. God, I mean, it is such a privilege to have it. It shouldn't be a privilege to have it. Bernie's absolutely right, and I didn't vote for him. I voted for her, but but for Elizabeth Warren. But he's absolutely right on this, and she's right on this too. Medicare for all. It should be a basic right for everybody. And no, I just do not understand anyone who's on Medicare who votes against Medicare for all. I just don't get it. I mean, what kind of mean, horrible caricature of an old witch or wizard can you possibly be?
I wonder that too. And it's funny you talked about like successful aging and unsuccess, I guess, losing aging, like whatever the opposite is. And I think about my grandfather was a laborer my whole life. He's still alive, but he's not laboring anymore, only because his body says he can't.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that he has lived like a 20-something as far as what he's put in his body all that time also does not hurt. But every time I talk on the phone, on his flip phone, because he's never owned a computer in his life, and I ask him how he is, and he always says, "I'm old. How do you think I am?" Which is honestly a great answer. But I think about the fact that how much of his life, how much it really did age him prematurely, that there is a difference. And a lot of people would say that he's in his, I think he's 81 now. He's shocked to have lived that long. We're all shocked, frankly. But he was a builder. He was a horse trainer. He was a Marine, a bunch of things that should have not led to longevity necessarily. But when I think people would consider him in his state now, which is he has emphysema, he's pretty unable to do as the things he used to do, they would consider him to not be aging successfully. And I just was thinking what a horrible thing it is that we've decided that the people who can age successfully are also in some position of privilege.
Yeah. Right.
That aging successfully is basically aging with wealth of some kind.
Exactly. Right. And but it's also interesting when he says, how do you think I am? I'm old, right? Old age begins to supersede every other measure of identity. It supersedes gender, for instance, and sexuality. Right?
Yeah.
Being old is more of an identity than being male, female, binary, non-binary, whatever. Right? Sexuality. Well, sexuality changes. Actually, I think sort of old men in particular. I know there's this obsession with performance, but in fact, the main audience for Viagra is men in their 40s and early 50s.
Interesting.
Yes, the ones who are totally obsessed with quote unquote performance, because of course it is just a performance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a reason you've got tongues and fingers and hands and whole bodies, right? There's more to being a man than just a penis.
And I think there's more to being a man than just an erect one too, right?
Precisely. Yeah. And that reminds me of that beautiful Sharon Olds poem, which I probably shouldn't read. She wrote a wonderful poem called The Pope's Penis, which is, believe it or not, really, really loving. And
taking notes.
I don't have it here right now. It's I really recommend it because it's beautiful. And I say this, the first thing I did when I discovered it was I sent it to a couple of Catholic friends and they loved it too.
Our Father who art in heaven.
Yeah.
I think that's very real. And I think that it's funny. When I was in college, I worked in bars mostly. And I worked in like as you mean where we're talking about before this, in like smoky old man bars. Like that was because that's how I did best there. Like I pulled the best tips there. And I always joke that like 80-year-olds with like handlebar mustaches, and who can smoke a cigarette and drink a beer with the same hand at the same time. Like that's my target demo.
Yeah.
But it is because there is this like sort of worn machismo, I feel like in many like really truly older men, where it's like, yeah, they don't buy Viagra anymore. They just want to chitty chat and like maybe they'll make a comment, but you're like,
yeah, but there's warmth, there's caring, there's so many ways of intimacy which they know, which younger men just don't get. It's I think there's greater intimacy when you're older. Sex in older people, there's definitely greater intimacy. And it is especially important for women because once you're past menopause, you into penetrative sex. It hurts.
yeah.
Right? It's let's do it the other way. Let's be close the other way. Let's find more ways to make love. Just try making instead of having sex, right? You know what I mean? Yeah.
In a lot of ways too, that really reminds me of what you were saying too. It's like, is youth something to even really be lost? And I think that that's a great question when, I feel like any older woman I've ever spoken to about like of sex and intimacy, what she has said pretty much without fail is it's better when you're older. And when I think about like sex in your 20s, like maybe somebody had a good time with that, but I don't know many. And so I do wonder, is like, yeah, what is it that you lose when youth goes? I guess, some things point different directions, but I don't know. I feel like even the idea like who's desirable is not, it's like we focus so much on people in their 20s as, youthful being a synonym for desirable, but like, is it?
Yeah, but so and that focus is we are bombarded with it every day, right?
Yeah.
Ads and movies and on TV and just bombarded with it. It's really it's one of my favorite. Not even remember if it was a sex scene. Harvey Keitel in the piano. It's a movie made in New Zealand probably about 30 years ago. But there's a lovely scene of Harvey Keitel naked, and he's got a kind of a belly, and he's sort of drooping a little bit, and so on. And I remember just looking at that body and thinking, that's a friendly body, you know. It wasn't a matter of admiring his musculature and so on, or sticking, dollar bills in his thong or something like that. It was just friendly. It was a body you could cuddle up with and feel comfortable
you could
with.
have a drink with. Like, it was, exactly. Yeah, I think about that a lot, actually, as I am aging into slightly larger denims than maybe I was before, and that's fine. It just is,
Yeah, I gave up on denim a long time ago.
Well, really. Let's be honest. When we talk about like leggings and like who wears leggings, Elaine Stritch pioneered leggings as just like old lady fashion, and I pay homage to her for that.
I love leggings. Love them, especially with high suede boots. Ooh, yes.
Oh, girl, that's a look.
Age appropriate? Probably not. Is this age appropriate? Probably. Who gives a fuck about age appropriate? Really, it's ridiculous that somebody else's
what does it mean?
How you should look and how you should behave. I think they're calling me to tell me so. It says Harvey Keitel on the piano. Yeah, who is this from? Not just friendly, powerful, compelling, and dear. I don't know who that's from, but it's from somebody who really likes what I just said about Harvey Keitel.
Okay, well, I just got a question as well, so here we go. Has growing older changed your feelings about the elders who were in your life when you were a child? That's a super good question. Do you think back on the elders who were in your life, either as a child or like in your 20s?
Not so much when I was a child. It makes me understand my mother in her 70s and 80s far better, and how I just didn't really get it, it makes me regret that I didn't really get it as well as I might have done. What she yeah.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the thing we all live with, right? Is wishing we had done better, as far as just like how to talk to our moms in general, or our mother figures, or our dad, like whoever. Mm-hmm. Once you get to that age and you kind of look and you're like, yeah, I get it better now.
You have to get past the or I did in any case, and we didn't quite manage it, and she did also. We had to get past the "you're my daughter, you're my mother" thing, in order to just see each other as people. And it becomes it's very difficult because you've got these, again, you just remember who you were as a kid is still part of you, and you find yourself, behaving like a kid and wish you didn't.
That's one of the things I remember my dad said to me the first time he met my partner was, he was like, well, I really liked getting to know Hanna as a person. Like, my dad was happy to know me as an adult person. Like, he really liked that relationship. And I think about that all the time, that like my favorite thing about my relationship with my parents now really is that we have managed to sort of get to that point, but I still like once a week look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, it's my mom. That's weird. She's not here. And yet.
Yeah. I remember looking in the mirror and seeing my grandmother, not my father, not my mother, my grandmother. And that happens more and more. Yeah.
I looked at my hands at one point and I was like, oh, that's my grandmother's hands. Like, it's weird that those appeared at the ends of my arms.
Yeah. I love it. I love it when I don't know if you could, the raised veins and so on. It's sort of like,
I want that. I still have these like pudgy baby hands. I think about it all the time.
I mean, sometimes
which was, tell us a little bit more about what successful aging is supposed to be. What is it?
It's such ridiculous definitions of the cognitive this and physiological that and so on and so on, which have nothing to do with your experience of actually being and living and existing. it's because they're trying to quantify everything, and
Sure.
being human is not really quantifiable. I'm
Right.
so happy to say that. We don't fit into categories. You cannot PowerPoint us. Well, you try, and you're doing it all the time, but really, I think PowerPoint is it's one of my number one enemies in the world. Because
Again, as a 30-something, I too am not a fan, and I have rejected it at every turn. But then I don't really like video chats either, usually. So, who knows?
you know what?
I don't usually, whenever I have to have like a video call for like work or something, I always am like, can we just do it on the regular phone? Like,
Oh, that's
we know
great.
that works.
Wow. Yeah.
But, so that's not an age thing either.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
But yeah. But I mean,
says chat disabled. I what that means. Are we being disabled?
Oh no, we're not using the chat. If there's the ask a question, I think is what we're looking for.
Ah, okay.
So folks need to ask a question, I guess.
Okay, look, I see something that says there's 157 people out there, and
what?
Boy, you stuck with us. Thank you. That's amazing. That's great.
Incredible.
I wish we could all get together, right? It was such a delight talking with you.
Oh my gosh, I know, Lesley. I'm loving this. Wait, I wanted to ask you about something. So you were born in England. I could tell by the way that you are.
Not my fault. Do not hold that against me.
No, I would never. No, of course not. No, my first thought whenever I meet like someone who's living in the United States who's from England, I'm like, why? Why would you move here? Like, have you looked at this country? Like, ugh. But I was in Scotland a couple of months ago, and it was great. Talk about smoky old man bars. Whew, perfect. But one thing I noticed was how like old the population really seemed to be. It was very interesting to me to see, and especially like old, like very independent seeming older folks who were easily in their middle to late 80s at a pub in the middle of the day. I don't see, and I day drink a lot. I'm also a writer, so I write from bars all the time. I never see old guys like that in bars. Maybe it's my neighborhood. Maybe you could shed some light on that. Like, what is it about the UK that lends itself to?
No, but it reminds me that I mentioned that poem before, and you mentioned Scotland, so I'll read you this poem. It is by Jenny Joseph, who is Scottish. She's a Scottish poet, and I love this poem. Some of you may already know. It's called "Warning," and it says, "I have no idea how old she is." It says, "When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple, with a red hat which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle fruit and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street, a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice just a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple."
I have never heard the whole poem. I have only ever known the purple dress and the red hat, like the red hat lady.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
I did not know that it made reference to collecting beer mats, but like, yes, sign me up. I love that. Of course she's Scottish. Of course she's Scottish.
Of course, yeah.
God, I love them. They know how to age, man. But maybe it's the pension thing. I think part of it's the ability to be a pensioner. Like we don't.
The ability to pensioner, National Health Service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like I think that's A big part of it. I mean, the fact that you have healthcare, you have, enough money to live on, ish, and there's the social safety net.
Education. Yeah. I'm just reading the message in the corner here. Don't be concerned with the time, like I said. Okay.
At least we can keep going. That's what she said.
Don't be concerned with the time. Don't be concerned with the years. Don't be concerned with numbers. Right? Just
never have been.
Yeah. But I should go and eat something. So, and it's probably time.
Lesley, it is an amazing getting to talk with you. I would love to, once all of this gestures at everything is done, I would very much like to get a drink with you and talk about religion and everything else.
Definitely.
And all you 150 people are invited.
I'll get you down from Finney Ridge, because she lives in Finney Ridge.
Yeah.
Down from Finney Ridge.
We'll go to Targis.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like my plan is working beautifully. This was really just an elaborate ruse to get the two of you together, really. So if nothing else,
we're actually
COVID has yielded one potentially beautiful friendship.
I'm actually shocked that Lesley and I are able to be on the same, and maybe this is why it kept breaking down, because I'm pretty sure, God willing, she is my future. So
I think a lot of us feel that way. Before I let everybody go, one of the unanswered questions was, what exactly is a town hall scholar in residence? And that's a really good question, since everyone who's done the job, the role, has interpreted it differently. But essentially, we ask, we invite somebody to come to town hall, and we literally and metaphorically give them the keys to the place, and we ask them to attend as many events as they will, to engage in public dialogue about things that they experience, to curate an event that engages other people, that brings people in, and then to present an event themselves that is called their findings, that is sort of a summary of their 3-month tenure at town hall. And as I say, everyone has interpreted it very differently. And both of these two women used it to extraordinary effect. And it was wonderful having you both in the place. And I mean it, just a super joy for me to be able to spend the last hour with you both, diving into a question that, as a man of a certain age, I think about, what's to come quite a lot these days. So thank you for shedding that light, and thank you for sharing, being willing to go where you refuse to tread, Lesley, and sharing works and thoughts in process. It really means a lot to us. Before I let all 157 of you go, I want to thank you finally for sticking with us through the thin, I was going to call it thick and thin, but it was really pretty thin there for the first 15 minutes, 18 minutes, but who's counting? It really means a lot to us that you stuck around. I want to thank our tech team tonight for persevering and getting to the bottom of all the challenges and ultimately delivering something that we could all enjoy together. And I want to let you know that we will be announcing more events over the course of the next couple of days. So check your inbox if you're on our list. And if you're not on our list, get there. townhallseattle.org. You can become a member or just sign up for our mailing list. It means so much to us that you joined us tonight. Thank you. And we will see you again, metaphorically very soon. Bye-bye.